Hello and welcome to my show TikTok, where we talk about what makes successful people tick and what it took for them to pursue their passions, follow their dreams, and achieve their goals. In the timeline of the evolution of Philippine fashion, the year 2020 and this crazy pandemic period will definitely reign in history as the year we got Lesley Mobo and his genius back, if only for the meantime. In the past few months, London's loss has been Aklan's and the Philippines' gain, and we're so excited to see him unleash even more of his renewed creative inspiration straight out of his beautiful Panay Island roots. Friends, please help me welcome today Aklan-born, London-educated, world-renowned international Filipino designer, Mr. Lesley Mobo.
Afternoon. Good evening.
Hi,
Hi,
Lesley.
Myrza. How are
How
you?
are
It's
you?
it's so nice. I'm honored to be invited on your talk show.
I'm
As
honored that you said yes.
said, I've been watching the earliest one.
Oh,
So
thank you so much.
yeah.
I'm learning as I go along, and so thank you for your support. So, how are you today? Where are you
Well,
right now?
where I'm in. Well, I'm still stuck in the barrio, in my mom's barrio, which is in Nabas, in Aklan, in Panay Island.
Okay.
So I'm still here. I mean, this is the longest I've ever been since I was, God, I
Wow.
don't know, 19 years old maybe.
Oh my
So this was the
gosh.
longest. This is like my mom was like counting yesterday.
She's
She's
so
like,
happy, siguro.
no, because I was already planning to go back to, because I need to go back to London actually soon.
Oh,
So
okay.
because there are some important
All
business things
right.
that I need to attend. So I'm just trying to kind
Okay.
of work, trying to figure out, how the airports are working in the Philippines.
Oh,
And you
okay.
know what it's like, because I always had problems with Philippine airports. I don't know why. I think, like, if I had a chance to talk to anyone in the Philippine government, the first thing I would probably suggest
Yes,
is like,
please.
if they could just like sort the system in the Philippine airport.
Pakiayos ang mga airport.
I think the only problem I have is, I think, always the red tape, because when
Yes.
when you live most of your life, almost like most of your life abroad, you sort of kind of use
Right.
into this sort of kind of
Of
easiness when you go to the
course.
airport. Like when you go to
Yes.
Malaysia or Bangkok, everything
Right.
seems to be flawless. Tapos
I
when you come
know.
you come into our beautiful, lovely Philippine
I
airports,
know.
they ask you so many papers. Like, even security guard asks you so many. Like, I felt
Right.
sometimes like they're treated like a criminal. So we're just trying to figure it out, because I need to go back to
Oh.
London. But
Di,
it's such an amazing time here, really, at home. So
oh, okay. Akala ko pa naman we'll have you for the rest of the year, but you're going back pala.
well, I was actually kind of, well, my family and myself were sort of kind of hoping, like, oh my God, this is like a sabbatical, like a year
Yeah.
sabbatical from
Right, right,
everything.
right.
And but unfortunately, we have
Reality bites.
responsibilities. We have so much responsibility, because I live now in two countries, basically. I live
Okay.
in the UK and I live here, so I travel quite a lot. I
Right,
think the
right.
last 5 years, my lifestyle kind of
Okay.
change. I'm not
Okay.
talking about the lifestyle, the fabulous one, but the realistic the I think the realistic lifestyle, work
Right,
and personal, seems to be always troubling. So it
right,
was kind of different from my sort of life template way back when I was kind of younger, working in the fashion industry, where I sort of kind of
right,
dedicated my time with the company, and you sort of kind of
right,
there from morning until God knows what time,
right,
24 hours a day.
right.
So
So speaking of sabbatical, how has your fourth sabbatical been like? I mean, looking through your Instagram feed, it's like a dream. The images are so stunning, and then you're cooking cassava cake and fishing and
um,
creating beautiful images. Kumusta naman yung last, what, 7 months, 8 months,
I think 9 months, because I was
9 months?
here on the last one for the Turnocon, which is January.
Right,
I
right.
was here for the Turnocon, and then I have visitors from England, from UK, and I took them back here, back home, and then I basically was planning to leave around, I think, I think March or April, and then the airline sort of kind. That's where the sort of COVID pandemic problem sort of started. So the sort of
Okay.
airline sort of kind of changes the flight. They move it
Right.
another week. So I think there was like 5 times they changed my flight
Oh my
until
gosh.
towards the point where I basically missed my flight back already. But
Oh, okay. So
but I'm
since Ternocon, hindi ka na nakabalik.
Hindi ako nakabalik kasi
Okay.
when I was supposed to go home around March or April, my mom
Right.
was sort of kind of suggesting to me, don't go back first. They say, contact the airline and maybe change it. Madali naman i-change yung flight mo. But, let's look kung anong mangyayari sa pandemic because she was really worried like a mother. She's a
Of
really
course.
typical provincial mom. So we sort of kind of waited and we say, oh, maybe a week or two, it should be okay.
Right.
And then the airline say, yes, yes, maybe a week or two. And then the airline keeps on changing it, and I was kind of, oh, it's cool, then longer time, fun. And then towards the end, it was like we were counting yesterday, it was like 9 months na ata. So
And then
yeah,
when you realized na hindi ka makakaalis, what went through your mind? Did you panic? Were you
I didn't
relieved?
panic really because I didn't really panic. I think at that time kasi there's nothing really immediate that I have to go back like work wise or
Right,
any
right.
sort of responsibility I need to sort out. And usually my timing usually is I go back here for a month, then I fly back another 2 months there, maybe or a month, and then I fly back again. So I actually come in and out of the country quietly usually, but
Okay.
and because Panay, Aklan is becoming more international. So sometimes you get a flight coming from Macau, Hong Kong, Malaysia,
Right, right,
Korea,
right.
or China. So sometimes I tend to go from those places rather than coming from Manila. So I wasn't really kind of panicky. I was kind of like, in a way, sort of relieved that I was with my family, and I'm
Yes.
just worried about my loved ones and my friends in
Right,
London,
right.
though. But
And then how did the creative inspiration start for you to create those ternos and those images that landed even in Vogue Australia, di ba?
yeah, yeah, I think what
How did that
happened
start?
really is I think it's like anyone. I think when we're faced with problems, a pandemic, for example. I think when you're limited, and I think we become more creative. I think the real sort of creativity and the honesty sort of kind of come out from us because there's nothing to go to, there's nothing to do, you're limited. So I think you sort of become like, I think I mean, the thing is, when I do that, I felt like I'm more like the real me. I felt like what Alice Virial from Australian Vogue was saying, that you know we don't really have to look anywhere other than just
Yes.
reflect. It's just doing something that's a reflection of who really we are, and I
Right.
think that's what kind of Vogue was celebrating. It's really going back to roots.
Right.
With this pandemic, it's like hope is really lies within us. What
Right.
we do about it, and I think that was the beauty of all of that. I think is that everything comes really natural. So I don't think it was done in a way to sort of to try to be too Filipino or anything. I think it's just, I think, I mean, when they sent me an interview, it was just a small feature, but when they sent me an interview, it was like 2 or 3 pages because I think people
Yes.
were just interested. I think the most one is the London-based magazine called Wow Magazine, which focuses on
Yes.
Asian culture.
I'm flashing it
They've
on the
actually
screen right
they
now.
actually featured in 11 pages, and I think what they're really interested really is that they said, I don't know, they just said that they've never seen Philippines in the way how it's been packaged like this. And I said,
Yes.
well, I said it's everything is exaggerated. I said the whole idea of the colors are exaggerated. You will never see Filipinos wearing this clothing, wherever you go now. But I think it's just, the whole idea of what we really are. We're trying to bring back this thing and everything. And, I'm just so surprised that everyone loves it. And I'm quite surprised that a lot of younger Filipinos in America and in other countries in
Yes.
Europe have actually contacted me and
Yeah,
even
I saw this Sampaguita.
yeah, but it's just like it's so nice that the little things that you do to kill time sort of
I
kind of
know,
made it
exactly.
touches people, and I think that's what is great about it, because you don't need really, you kind of realize that fashion is business. And I've been working in, because most of my career naman, as probably Myrza, because you've always been picturing me in your magazines before, my
Yes.
career is more based on working on companies. So sometimes I work with a lot of big companies where I don't have to speak about where that I work there, because it's part of the contract that you're not allowed to talk. So most of my career really work on working behind the scene. I'm
Yes.
not really like the face of the brand, or I'm not really, I work
Correct.
for those companies. And I think as I kind of matured in the industry, I turned into corporate fashion, where most of the time I just go in companies trying to buy companies. When you have
Right.
an investment bankers trying to invest on brands,
Yes.
that's not doing well, they want to buy it for less money, and then after 5 years they will sell it for more money. So my career sort of became more in a corporate fashion, where everything really is
Yes.
kind of either retail or business oriented, and it's
Yes.
all about it's all about
Targets
figures, it's all about
and
targets, and it's all about observing the
metrics.
creative team, and trying to fire in people. And that was, I think, the last straw really with me. I think when I worked for a
Okay.
company where I was hired by a private equity company in the United Kingdom, where their business really sort of kind of invest on buying brands, and then basically sort of kind of sell it off after a few years. And I think
Right.
I I think that was the most highest paid I've got paid as a fashion designer. But there were
But
there was, I don't think creativity was part of it. I think what they're paying you really is that sort of corporate sort of experience and knowledge of how the retail and sort of works. And I think what really sort of kind of traumatized me is that I realized that I entered fashion because I wanted to inspire. I wanted to create something that speak about what I have in my mind, about what I think about the world. And then suddenly, I ended up in this corporate world, with bankers and everything. And we have all what we do is basically trying to look at the creative team and trying to. It's all about firing and hiring people.
yes, yes.
And I felt like I because I believe in karma and all of that sort of thing. And what you sort of kind of do, and everything, every decision you make, good or bad, it comes back to you. And I felt like doing a lot of corporate fashion sort of kind of causes a lot of negative things in my life, because what we did there really was so
I'm sure it
very,
was so stressful.
it's very kind of city like what you said, it's like a Wall Street sort of kind of environment
Yeah,
rather than fashion.
right,
And
right.
I felt like, yes, it brings kind of good money, but at the same time, you sort of go back home and you felt so much guilt, because you have to, half of the creative team has to be changed or to be fired up, because you suggested that you know to be able to get the target, you needed a certain more younger vision for the brand, for them to
Yes, yes.
able to repackage them. So I think I think and then my dad died as well. I think it
Oh,
was
so sorry.
for 2014. So I think that was sort of kind of my personal sort of kind of reflection to myself. And I said to myself, hang on a minute. I mean, is this really the reason to exist, to reason to do fashion, to do just for the money? But, I was saying it to someone that I actually entered fashion when I was young because for the money, because I wanted, to help my family, to have a better life and everything. But I felt that that was the whole reason. When I studied in London, I just wanted to do fashion because I love it. But as soon as I finish it, my real goal really was to make money from fashion. I wasn't really like, I think initially it started as I wanted to be an artist, but at the same time, when I finished studying at St. Martin's, I wanted to basically make money and help my family.
Yes,
That
yes,
was the
yes.
thing. And I think that was already the decision why I took a lot of commercial sort of of jobs rather than the more creative sort of kind of route really. But I think the pandemic is kind of brilliant really, because I think I'm a little bit older now, I think, and I think I'm in a position. I was with Rafi, yeah, the first people that
Yes.
you had a talk with, and Rafi always visited London, for his research and everything. And we always sat down, and he said like, "Oh, you're slowing down in fashion. Are you giving up in fashion?" I said, "It's not really giving up fashion, really. I felt like I've matured so much because I've started really early in kind of in fashion design. I was really kind of started so early. I think my 20s really is really kind of focused so much on fashion. I think I moved to London, and then my life was just 24 hours, really. I worked so hard to finish my study. And then
Right,
at the
right.
same time, because it was self funded and my family and everything, I worked so hard. I think everyone knows that, I clean houses,
The
I clean.
story of
I
Leslie.
clean, I know it's so maala-ala mo kaya, but I think everyone say it's maala-ala mo kaya.
It's
Feeling ko
very
there is,
inspiring because the whole night you're working cleaning
yes,
and then
I
the
work.
whole day you're studying.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's so much hard. I mean, although we're not rich in the Philippines at the time, you were not wealthy, when I went there, we were so poor. I felt like, I felt like at the time I could have done, if I'm in the Philippines, I could have done a more decent job. But I felt like when I went to London, I was really like, I was really working on the floor. I was basically cleaning, toilets,
Yes.
cleaning floors, and
Wow.
you're suddenly you become like that invisible person
Right,
in
right.
that workspace where nobody really, people just pass by and nobody even wants to know you. But I think it's like I just said to myself, what the heck, this is.
How did you do that for 5 years? I mean, you must have.
No, I only did that for 3 years actually,
Okay,
because at the
still.
time to do that, I think when I was doing BA, Bachelor of Arts in Fashion, I did that on that one. But even when I got on my second year, I already got job interviews because the school was
Okay.
already
I
recommending
noticed
me.
your talent.
They're already recommending me. I think that's the beauty, I think, of places like St. Martin's, because when they see someone with potential, they already put you through industry people. So when I was in second year, I got my first job interview with the House of Dior, and
Yes.
with John Galliano, which was at the time was my
John
ultimate.
Galliano himself interviewed you.
Yes, yes. It's actually his
Wow.
team. There were like, I think there were like three or four of us selected, for that. But I was the only one that on the lineup. I think there were like, I was the one that's not yet finished. I was in my second year, and most of the people on the lineup already graduating student, but they felt like Galliano, my tutor thinks that I should be on the lineup because they felt that I should have my work presented, because they need to see my work, because they felt at the time it was very Dior, it's very Galliano, and my handwriting at the early stage was very much of that kind, because I coming from the Philippines, I don't have any access for with fashion books and everything. So the only things that I've learned is that Galliano was great, and I've apprenticed with Ino very briefly, and he told me that this is what you should look. Galliano is this and that. So my framework was really sort of kind of focused on Galliano, and yeah, I did an interview with him and his team at the time. Steve, which was his right hand man, which unfortunately died of heart attack because of the stress of working for the team, and then Vanessa, which is his muse. So we were asked to go for his shoot in I can't remember which studio it was. It was in Islington in London, which is near where I live now actually, and they were doing a shoot for the Dior ad campaign with Nick Knight and
Wow,
Jane
Nick
Howe.
Knight.
Nick Knight and
Okay.
Jane Howe, which is like you know was like the ultimate stylist. Which in the end, actually, when I finished my masters, I ended up working closely with Jane Howe. So
Wow.
it's so funny how like the separation between the people that that you look up and then you ended up working with.
Right.
But I didn't get the job in the end, because first I said to myself, I have to move to Paris, and first I have only a student visa in London. So that means that because the company needed someone immediately, because those were the heights of Dior with Galliano, and they needed someone immediately. And it's basically meant like I have to abandon my studies, which was my
Right, right,
ultimate dream to finish. And at the same time, there was bureaucracy problem, which is my visa. So
right.
I can't basically just drop everything and then go to Paris, because that means that I at the time, I have to get, a working, and it's a big hoo-ha. So in the
Yeah.
end, I didn't get the job, but I was on the final, I think final two or something. But I think the visa sort of kind of causes the thing about on that. But they hired someone who is already graduating, which is not really very Dior, but he sort of kind of ended up working there anyway for years. So
Right.
um
But
yeah,
little did
so
you know that you would end up in the book with Galliano
oh
called Who's Who in Fashion, right?
oh
Where you are
no.
included. What did
No,
that
but
feel like?
I don't think you work. I mean, I think you don't work in the industry to be on magazine or to be
That's
on books.
okay.
Think, I think that's just like an extra thing.
It's a
Like
bonus.
it's just like the bonus because you just do. I think originally I like working on the stand because I'm a draper. Like what they say, I drape. So that's why when people ask me like, because I do a lot of special dresses for private clients as well, which I only have a very very close tight clients, which that I dealt with, and I said to them, let's not draw. I can draw, I can give you like hundreds of sketches, but the best way really to get, when you ask someone to design you a dress, a special dress, you want to have that feel of that old way of doing it. And I said, let's
Right.
drape, let's not sketch, because you know a sketch is a sketch. You give it to like 500 pattern cutters, a biased dress could end up with the different ways of 500 ways of interpretation. So what you see on sketches really is just a communication of between the atelier or between the factory. But if you do a special dresses for clients, you want to do it the old way. You want to drape it so you see how the fabric flows. You want to see how the grain line works with it, the weight, and everything like that. And I mean, originally that's how I started when I was a student. And obviously the more you work in the industry, you sort of kind of lost touch with that because you ended up with a team that does that sort of thing for you. So now I get to do that, which is amazing, and that's why I only have a limited clients that I select, because I couldn't really be able to have the time to do everything
Right.
for each of
Right.
them. So I just only slit it in between,
Right.
and most of my what I do now really is sort of consultancy, and I'm quite selective as well with that. I rarely
Right.
accept them. I think I have like I have an agent. I have five agency in London, and I always keep saying to them, they keep emailing me this and this and that. But I felt like I don't want to go back. Like I think it's the same with being an actor or any artist. Once you make your CV looks like a corporate thing. You ended up doing the same thing and the same thing, and I felt like I wanted to kind of go back to my roots, and I felt like I've already
Right.
done my bit on that sort of type of fashion. I think I wanted to do fashion. I studied. I finished. I wanted to make money. I made a little bit of money. Now I wanted to go back, from the very core
Right.
of it all. Really,
And
the
so the past
the
few months, you were able to go back to the core of who you
what
were. You said that it's been a period of self-discovery. What have you discovered
well,
right
I
now
think
in your creative sabbatical?
I think it's more self-reflection. I think with the way how the industry works, the world works. We are sort of kind of swallowed by, everything has to be this and that, and everything has to be with money and everything. And then you realize really that you grow older, and you sort of kind of ask yourself what is really what you want in life. And I felt like first you have to do what you really really love. I mean, you have to be honest with yourself, why. And someone asked, why Turno? Well, I don't know. I said it's just something that you know it's something that's whispering on my ear, because I've just done Turnocon, so maybe it's just a hangover from it.
Right,
I'm
right.
not suggesting that I'm doing it politically, because people are trying to message me, oh, you're just trying to be, on a political point of view, you're just trying to bring back those kind of hangover about, Turno and something. No, 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 no. I said, no, I don't think that was the point. I think we have to remember that I think Turno was a victim of politics as well. I think if you talk to people like Gino Gonzalez, who
Yeah.
was dedicated, who is really the person who started it all, really, with
Right.
Benchan and Margie, that I think Terno was being politicized, has been involved in politics, and I think we should take away politics from Terno, and because that's the only. I think the problem, I think, is like kind of losing that identity, because obviously we have the American influence. We have so many influences in this country, and I just felt like traveling with friends in Thailand and other Asian countries. It's quite. We're quite jealous, when I travel with friends like Benchan, Miguel, Pastor, all that people who love, anything Filipino, and we go there and we see the retail, how their fashion industry is working. It's just really something to really admire, and I felt like, maybe we
Their
can do
sense of
something.
cultural pride.
Yeah,
The,
but it's
the,
it's not just cultural pride. I think it's just identity. I think we're
right.
just not really. I think the Thai, fortunately and unfortunately, I think the Thai, as Noel Manapat, I will quote Noel Manapat, said that the Thai people knows how to read their codes, their traditional codes, their heritage. And I think Philippines, we have so many elements in our culture, in our heritage, but we don't know how to read it. And I think what happens with Terno is that when you Google Terno, the first thing that comes out are kind of very pageantry. We see visuals of Terno as something that has to do with um, with pageantry, or not that I'm saying that it's bad. I think pageantry has its positive side, but at the same time, on the sort of kind of overhaul sort of kind of point of view about, if you wanted to market a certain sort of kind of culture, you want to show something, I think it's sort of kind of mislead people on the aesthetic point of view. So I don't know. I think the Turnocon sort of thing was an inspiration for me as an experience, because I mentored the young designer. I was one of the mentor, along with Ino, with Philip and Ivar. And I think we mentored for almost a year. It was nearly like 11, or it's almost a year actually, almost 11.
Oops. You froze. Can you hear me? Lesley? Lesley, can you hear me? You're frozen.
You really well. Yes, I
Okay.
can hear you.
All
Yeah.
right. All right.
I
So
just felt
even
like
sorry, go ahead.
I just felt like the Turnocon experience with Gino Cruz and the whole Turnocon family with the CCP and everything, mentoring young designer, those I couldn't get enough of it. I think like we spent almost a year, and I felt like parang kulang pa. So I felt like I felt
Nag-carry
like
over siya.
I felt like I have to continue. And I said to Gina, I can't stop. I
Yes.
said, I have to like continue doing. And, Tita Milet says like, oh, Lesley, your universe becoming like Filipino now. Everything is really very Filipino and
Right, right.
colorful.
And the
So,
images are beautiful, if not also kind of like a political statement, because you used the Aetas in your environment as the models, which is in
yeah,
our colonial mentality is not
yeah.
does not has changed the standards of beauty so much so that you said that the people in your town were very
Village.
surprised by the images and they did find them beautiful at all. You want to tell us about your
Oh,
choice
yes.
of models and the reaction of the people in
I think
your
it wasn't really pretentious as well. I have to say it wasn't really pretentious. I don't think I did it to pretend that, yeah, I
of
wanted to
course,
make a statement.
right,
In
right.
the village where we live, I couldn't find any models. And I think this was, when I did the shoot, this was the time where every town is actually, you're not allowed to enter any other town. So
Okay,
we're
right.
actually just in the village, and we can't even like, if you
Lockdown
you you, you go
talaga.
to the main road or something, you have like barangay tanod sort of kind of policing everything, so you can't really go anywhere. So I said to myself, I mean, who is going to model it? Shall I just like put it on a mannequin or on a dummy? And I realized that there were actually a lot of atis
Mhm.
in our village, really young
Right.
girls like playing around. And I said
Very
like,
beautiful girls.
and then I said to them, come over. I said like, look at this turno. And obviously, it's so sad that young girls seems to like have no idea about our national dress anymore. They just
Oh, wow.
automatically just think of it as a floral dress. They don't think like, oh, it's Filipiniana or it's a terno. And that's why I think I felt strongly that I need to push more on it, because I felt like the younger generation really, like, they need to see more of it. So I started sort of photographing them on my backyard, and because we live in the barrio, and we have a farm, so everything really is just behind the backyard really. So it was just in the mountain, it was just on the seaside, everywhere really where we live, because we couldn't go anywhere. So I just photographed all these girls, and at the same times we have my mom and myself, we will cook something and we'll feed them in between and stuff like that with Filipino food. So the Aita thing sort of kind of just went with the story that, yes, when I posted it, people started saying like, you're making a political statement. Like, yeah, but what's new about the Aita tribe? I
Right.
mean, the truth about it is that they're always been taken advantage in history wise.
Very
I mean, I think Panay, where I live, especially Aklan, we celebrate Ati-Atihan. And it is considered to be the mother of all festival in the Philippines, because
right.
it is really historically where the Aita, the people from the Aita sort of landed. It's they first came from Borneo basically, because the Aita really comes from their they're basically are from Borneo, but they're basically known to inhabit Australia, the Polynesian countries. And these ancestors of ours, which is the Aita, came from Borneo and went straight to Panay. And then for us, Aklanons, or people from Iloilo, Antique, Capiz, Aklan, for us, the Aitas are the real people who owns the island. They're really the ancestors. And I think it's only when, the Muslims sort of kind of came in, and then with their balangays and sort of trying to kind of buy off the land from them. So you could see even history-wise from before, the Aitas are always been bribed. They've been,
Right.
their land has always been taken with them. And then obviously then you have the Spaniards, and you have the Japanese, and then you have the Americans. And I think what's the worst one is even now, you have people now, like you're talking about on the present, you have people taking advantage of them, like taking their grabbing their land. And there's a lot of technicalities about how you grab land from the Aitas. You just say it's for them, and then afterwards you take it off from them. And there's a lot of kind of political thing which I don't want to go through in details now, because I think we have so much problems in the country now that I don't really want to stir it up. But I think they're really kind of I think they're people that really are the original people in our island, and we should really live with them side by side. We should show
Right.
respect to them, just like what they do in Australia. I
The
think
Aborigine.
I think the people in Australia acknowledge the fact that the Aboriginal people are the rightful people that owns
Right.
the country, and everyone is just an immigrant. And
Right.
I think that you either have to acknowledge that and live with them side by side. And I think in a country like the Philippines, I think it's so unfortunate that matters like this are sort of kind of less important, because I
Right.
mean,
Right.
I understand, because we have so much problems. People
Right.
at the moment, they don't even have anything to eat, but and then
Right.
you sort of raise this sort of kind of political issues about tribes and stuff. But I
Right.
think it just felt like, yeah, just get it out there. At least you're sending a message that this is what it is. So
It's a
yeah.
very powerful message indeed. And you've also you spoke before some
Oh yes,
government
that's the
officials in your attempt to help
yeah.
support the piña industry. You want to tell us about that?
Well, the piña industry is, well, I live in Aklan, and Aklan is basically where originally really piña is really the pioneer industry, really is piña weaving. And obviously, we have piña weaving in Antique as well. We have piña weaving in Iloilo, and we have some now that have started in Palawan. But I think we have to remember that this industry is already also suffering a lot during the pandemic. But I think even without the pandemic, this sort of kind of cottage industry thing about piña is already sort of kind of in a tricky situation anyway. It's a very, very, very on a delicate situation because, you know, people thinks it's still expensive, and the biggest market for it really is, you know, a local market within the Philippines. And I
Right.
think we still sort of people still, you know, you post piña and they say, oh, it's lovely, but at the same time they would say, oh, it's expensive. But you know, I had a chat with the people from. I mean, I did a talk with in our provincial. I was invited by by the the governor, the vice governor, and the sangguniang panlalawigan in our province to they want to give me an award, and I said no, I don't want an award. I said, I mean, if you want, I can go and talk about, you know, what we're, you know, what you should really sort of kind of put your mind into is that
Right.
what we have here is really precious. We have the piño weaving, you know, we have the ati-atihan, we have the piño weaving. I think these are just amazing sort of elements for a province to have, and at the same time, you know, we seems to be neglecting, not neglecting, but it's just felt that it just needed support. And I
Right.
went
Right.
there and I said, okay. They said you'll have a chance to do a speech. So I went there, accepted the award, and they gave me a time to actually uh, to, you know, to sort of kind of say that I'm trying to, you know, to help in in any sort of small way to promote, you know, our piña weaving. So I think that's what it is. And I
What was their reaction? Did they
uh,
act on your plea or your request?
I think I mean they're into it, but I think the problem really is that we're facing the government. I don't think it's really the priority at the moment, unfortunately, because we have so much problem, you know, and you know it was the wrong time as well because I don't think there'll be any budget for anything like that. And I was working with Gino as well before this happened, a month before, trying to go through every weaving uh, places in Aklan and try to develop something for Gino that hopefully might be able to help the weavers. But obviously, I sort of kind of realized that it's also a dead end. And this is what something that we had a meeting the other week with Len Kabili and the
Right.
people from Habi, the Habi people that
Yes. Yes.
does the textile and everything. That I said, you know, that maybe what we need is more investment for us to be able to help those weavers to sustain the businesses and for the business to stand as it's up. Because what's happening with the Pino weaving is that the businessmen tend to do this because this is something that's being passed on to them by their families. So they felt like it's their responsibility to keep the business going. But I don't think it bring in so much money that they actually have to do other side business with it. So that's why Gino was surprised when I told them like, no, I mean these people are not 100% really focused on just doing that. You know, they do other bread and butter so that they can be able to keep, you know, doing this traditional thing, which is something that, you know, is, you know, just by being passed for them. So yeah, in a way it is good, but at the same time, you know, you if you wanted it really to flourish, for it to be a proper industry, I think the Philippine fashion industry, we say we have the fashion industry. I think it's good what Jackie Aquino is doing, and the whole sort of theme about, you know, fashion Fridays and buying Filipino and promoting
Right.
anything to promote awareness of wearing and buying Filipino. But we always keep saying we have a fashion industry, but I felt that in comparison to Thailand or to any other sort of India or anything like that, but you know, we're much probably younger civilization compared to those countries like India or China. But the problem is you can never really say we're a proper industry if the whole sort of cycle of fashion is complete. So when we say a complete sort of cycle of fashion means like you have the raw materials, the fiber, that you provide, and then someone manufactures it, someone weaves it, and then someone sort of sell it, and then someone buys it, and then someone designs it, and someone retails it. So and then someone retails it, someone promotes it in a magazine, so then someone buys it, then you have the consumer. So you get the whole full cycle of an industry, of a whole fashion industry. But I think the problem we had in the Philippines is unfortunately, we like the idea that we have a Philippine fashion industry, but our fashion industry works really sort of halfway. We only
Right.
start sort of kind of in the middle because we don't even produce zipper, we don't even produce threads. Everything comes from China, so we rely anything from China. And you know how difficult it is sometimes to import raw materials from other places. So, even leather skin sometimes comes from other countries. It has to be imported before you export it or before you even sell it to the locals. So our sort of fashion system is not really a full circle system. We needed really, well, the government again needs to really kind of look at it. We need to have like, the I don't think we have the system. We don't have the complete one. And I think that was the problem we have. And I felt that what Lynn Cavili, for example, I mean, she is one of the great example and one of the great people in the industry that I admire because she works so much into this sort of kind of weaving industry of all this, weaving everywhere. But when I spoke to her, because Len and I sort of always, we're part of this hobby thing now, which we were going to
Right.
actually
Right.
judge the Piña
Judge
competition
Piña
competition
competition.
next week actually. I think on the 17th we're going to judge it, me and
Right.
Lynn, and we had very long sort of chat about it. And it's so sad actually that I realized that some of our tribal weaving in certain parts of the country, they're not actually 100% Filipino, the fibers, because
Oh no.
some of the cottons actually comes from China or some other
Oh
places because
no.
we don't have enough farmers to provide those
Oh, Philippine
fibers.
cotton.
So we sort of ask ourselves, when we're going to judge this pinya thing, how many percentage of a fiber of a Filipino produced fiber needs to be on the fabric for it to be considered Filipino? And we realized that pinya is the only traditional heritage fabric that we have in the Philippines that is
It's
100%
truly
from
ours.
the Philippines. Because if you
Right.
look at some of the weaving that we always see on all this traditional pop-up market, we always sort of kind of take pride. Oh my God, this is so Filipino. But really, if you sort of kind of see the cross section of it, yes, the design is Filipino. Yes, the motifs are Filipino. Yes, it's been weaved in the Philippines. Yes, it's been woven by Filipino tribes. But actually, the fibers are not really that 100% from the Philippines because it's actually mixed with some cottons or other sort of fibers that comes from outside the Philippines. So I think that's the beauty of the piña because we really need to preserve piña because it's so original, as what Len sort of mentioned. I can't stop mentioning Len because I just admired Len, and I just felt like when you scrape the leaf of the pineapple, with
Right.
a broken plate. After scraping it, you see the fiber, and that's piña, and that's exactly what you basically weave. So what you see, it's 100% Filipino. It's from a plant, from the ground to
Right.
fabric. I mean, you'll never see anything like that in any other country. So that's why piña really should be protected, and that's why
Yes.
I think we're sort of suddenly have to do anything, and what we're doing is really minute, really. I mean, I don't know whether it will even help, but anything to promote it, or anything that anything for Pinya, we have to really kind of value it,
Right.
because it's the only fabric and the only fiber that is really really 100%. You see what
Indigenous.
you get what
Right.
you see, that's
Right.
100% Filipino.
Yes,
So
but just your attention and your time and your concern, I think it's not a minute thing. It's a very major thing to bring attention to what could
well,
potentially be
I
our
think I said to
treasure.
I think I said to them, I've never used Filipina much. I've only used it probably once or twice. So
Right.
because I work in a different sort of market, and I have a friend who works at Burberry who does the fabric sourcing and everything, and she said, "Oh, show me anything that the Piña has, anything that has new about Piña." But I said to myself, "Oh, I went back to the weavers and I say, is there anything you can do that is very, global competitive and everything?" And then I realized that that's not really the way forward for Piña. I think it's unfair to bring Piña straight to that sort of level, because then you realize that it's not really sustainable, because
Right. Right.
companies like European companies like that, if ever they like Piña. And I remember that Patis Tesoro once brought Piña to Valentino. I think that the problem, I think, with that is, like, okay, it might make some noise about Piña, but it's not really long term in a way, because
Right.
brands like European brands, they will use it as sort of kind of a seasonal thing, and then the weavers will get a massive order in one season, and then the next season, that will be
Wala na.
like wala na. So
Was na.
it becomes like a trend, and you don't want Piña to be a trend, you see. So I said that's the wrong thing. I think the first thing about Piña really is, I think we should really step back and make it just local at the moment. Let's not trying to be make it international, because I think Piña first belong to the Filipino. I think first we
Right.
have to learn to
Right.
protect it
Right.
first, and
Long
then
term.
consume it as well. And I think
Right.
the Fashion Coalition team, I think the Fashion Coalition, I think, is that the name of the new association where they putting. I think the Fashion Coalition is trying
Yes.
to
Yes.
go
Yes.
through to the Senate, I think, or even to the president, I think, to try to kind of raise awareness to it. And I think it's been
Right.
headed by Len Kabili, and I know that there's a lot of them. I think Lulu Tangan is obviously part of it, because she uses a lot of piña, I think. And there's a lot of section, I think, of the Fashion Coalition. But
Right.
I said to Lynn that Len asked me to help her on that side, because I live in a clan, and I said anything I can help, but I don't have to join the coalition. I could be here and help you. I don't have to be part of the coalition to be able to help any
Right. Right.
causes that has to do with Piña.
Right.
So
Right.
that's what Piña is all about. That's why we're so kind of trying, but somehow at the moment everything is a dead end, because I'm sorry, I seem to talk a lot because I'm so
No.
passionate
No. No. No.
about this, because at the moment
Everything you say is very important.
the piña is still done the same way. They're still using the same machine that they used to weave when back time, way back even the Japanese time. So
The
you go to
ancient
this, like,
looms.
the Asian way.
Looms.
So you look
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
them and say they're doing all this thing. They're knotting it one by one, and this whole sort of kind of four piece, which the government sort of allowance that gave, because they, a lot of our cottage industry, like the basket weaving, the banig weaving, and you include the pino weaving, they're all relies on cottage industry. So they rely
Right.
on women being at home on their free time, trying to weave, trying to knot this fiber, trying to weave all this thing. But the problem is, because we have this fantastic four piece, which basically the government give them money to provide for, either to help them support food or education for their children. But unfortunately, in some cases I've observed, and I think a lot of people would probably back me up on here. Unfortunately, I think unfortunately this causes a lot of problem as well in the cottage industry, because those women are supposed to be sitting trying to do all these things. They stop doing them because they're already earning money from the
Oh
government.
no.
They're receiving money already from the government. So why would they even sit there and try to scrape
No
pineapple?
incentive.
Yeah, and it takes so much time to do all these things. This is like haute couture level, and why would I sit there, and I would just probably make less money. And if I just sit here, try to play cards, try to pekwa with my kapitbahay and do chismis. Yeah, I'm so, and they will be entertained, and no,
That's
and that's the
true.
problem I think of all this cottage industry. So we also have to look at the the uh, the setup in our in
Right,
how the
right.
government support them. But there's so much problem about it. Really, they were saying that, when I spoke to someone from Habi, they said that, oh, our farmers needs to be needs to receive a better pay for the fiber. I said to her, oh gosh, I think I would love to do that. I would love that they would receive more money from the fiber, because at the moment they don't really, those people that, not the pineapple fiber, and they bring it on the marketplace like either Saturday or Sunday in towns and sell them, because they don't make a lot of money from there. So they were saying that, oh, they should really, they get more better compensation for doing all of that. But I said it's really a matter of economy. I think, if you have depends on the supply and the demand. So I was just like saying to them, I think they were they had a really good laugh about it. I said, like, I think let's have a look at cocaine, for example. I
Oh
said,
no.
I said, like, if you look at coca plant, why is it in Colombia that the cocaine plant, the farmers are still continuing planting cocaine in spite the fact that it's illegal? And the reason about it, it's economy, because there's the
Right.
supply and the
Big
demand, and
demand.
there's the demand never really, really, really goes down. And the price of cocaine never changes since the 1980s, as you would know. I mean, the price of cocaine, when the price of coca plant, the leaves, because cocaine comes from a plant, from a leaves. The price of the leaves from coca plant, they sell it by per sacks or per kilo, and the per kilo never changed since the 80s as well. So it's really a matter of economy, and the supply and the demand. And I said, the prices, you can make the prices up if there's a continuous demand on it.
Right,
And I
right,
think that's a problem I think we have, is that the demand of the piña is really irregular. It's not really
right,
sort of reliable in a way.
right,
Unlike
right.
cocaine, it's really, really reliable. That's why even in Colombia, even it's illegal to plant coca plant for cocaine, the farmers still would risk it
Right,
because it's
right.
such a reliable
They
sort of a
risk their life and
source of
their
income. And it's the same with piña as well. People won't really plant the type of the species that is used for pineapple fiber, which is the Spanish variety. Uh, People would plant them specifically if they own, a
right,
certain, or they have an intention to make a pineapple fiber. So it's really, it's that sort of economy really about it. So the thing about piña, I think, is that what they're planning to do is that they're hoping that the government could implement, um, put it on a sort of kind of a law or something, that the government officials should be able to wear a piña. And this is what I said
right.
as well to, I think,
Required.
yeah, that's what I said to Arnel Patawaran from Manila Bulletin,
Required.
where he sort of messaged me early in the morning. I say, how far can we push Turno? And I said, well, maybe, we should have nurses, policemen wearing Turno, maybe, or maybe, they should be
Why
on,
not?
they should be Turno that are made of either our traditional fabrics like piña,
Right,
so
right,
that then if we have that, then it balances the demands. There's always a continuous demand on the piña. So the more demand there is, the volume there is, the prices might just go down a little bit. Or maybe the other option is for the government to invest for a sort of kind of modern machines, and sort of kind of give it to every provinces that has that piña industry, so that the piña industry, alongside the traditional way of weaving piña, they could also produce and experiment with new fabrics that are
right,
probably less expensive, but machine made, but maybe only
right.
50% piña, 50% something man made or something like that.
Very
So that's
good.
the only way you could really see that the traditional product of piña, the expensive one, and you have the bread and butter, the cheaper one, the machine one. And then, that's the only way the business of piña as an industry
Right,
could retain it, I think. Because
right.
I could,
And hope
I'm just sort of worried that, in the next generation third, fourth, it might just vanish
Might
because at the moment,
disappear, right?
you
And
can only count.
hopefully those concerned are listening and will take your suggestions to heart. What about Filipino fashion design talent? Are you worried about it? What is your assessment? 2 years ago, you partnered with Mid College to put up a
Oh yes,
fashion
yes, yes.
design school.
Yeah, yeah.
Since
Well,
the 2 years have passed, what's the
well,
progress or any what are your findings about the new generation of Pinoy design talent?
I
And
think when
how
we Yeah, I think when we set
ahead?
up the Mint Fashion School, was the idea wasn't really that we wanted to do the traditional sort of way of fashion designing,
Right,
because
right.
we wanted, the original idea really was because Mint in itself already was a successful a school that sort of kind of teaches progressive education. And I think it just happened that when I spoke to the Mint people, they have the same sort of feelings and vision like what I have, that I felt that the younger Filipino designers really should, rather than just, I think it's essential. Like, it's a long story, but I don't know whether we had enough time, because it's another thing that I'm really kind of passionate about, is just education in fashion and on the
Yes,
business and
yes.
commercial side of it. And I felt like if you allow me to just talk and talk and talk, I will try,
I
but
will
it's
allow
just
you. It's
it's
very
just
important.
long. I think the idea about it really that we have is that it's not necessarily the idea was just to promote a school about it, but the whole idea is like when how the Japanese does, how they do their education is that they go for bunka. For example, bunka is one of the most respected Japanese fashion school in Japan, where a lot of great Japanese from Yohji Yamamoto, Reiko Wakubo, most of them really sort of had a training there. But the thing about bunka is that you go there, like Slims, for example, or what Joji Loren is doing. I did a talk at Joji Loren's school, fashion school as well. That I hope that people realize that it's not a competition. This is really a matter of like joining forces together. Like
Right.
in Bunka, people would enroll there, for example, to sew a perfect trouser, to make a perfect pattern cutter, and to be a perfect pattern cutter, or to be a good seamstress. And after they finish a course in there, sometimes people would go to Europe, like St. Martin's or the Royal College of Art, where they have a great fashion in masters, or in Parsons in America, or in Antwerp, where they have a very good fashion school, or in Instituto Marangoni, which is famous to some students
Yes.
in the
In
thing.
Milan.
And
Yes.
they would do a second course on design alone and on business. And I think this is what we're trying to see about Filipino, because we always felt that in our culture is that if you have a kid who is so talented, I wanted to study painting, or I wanted to study fashion. And the first thing that the dad would say, no, I'm not, you study nursing, because
Kasi walang
nursing is really,
pera.
yeah, no, because you can always do that on the side. And I think
Right.
for us to be a progress, to be considered as a progress, to have a progress, a country that is looking toward progress, I think we really need to look at the way how the education system is being done, the way how we look at education. And I'm not just saying that education is the key to everything. I don't believe to it, because, if I would ask myself something, I would probably do, if I would live my life again, I wouldn't probably go to the education route again. But for me kasi is that I think we're too conservative about the way how we see education. I think kids and parents thinks to like, it's like it's like a passage to life, like you have to do this, kailangan mong mga anak ng ganitong edad, kaya makasawa ka ng ganito. It becomes like
Societal programming.
parang it's like programming. And I just felt kasi that I think education is really looking for what's really what's really the
Passion.
potential within each person, because every
Right.
person has a potential. So if
Right.
someone has a passion, and I think the problem we have is that we don't consider creative careers as a sort of kind of a great option in life.
Right.
Like
Right.
people don't think like in the provinces, they don't think like being a fine art, being an artist, being a
Right.
being a painter
Right.
is a great career. Whereas if you go through Europe, it's the most respected and the highest form of thing. I think
Right.
when you're an artist, you're a painter, you're a sculptor, you're a designer, you're a singer, you're a thing. You're considered to be a
Right.
gift. You're like a
And
rarity.
you yourself went through this, right? Because you finished biology from FEU and you got a
Yeah.
scholarship with a medical school,
Well,
right?
the thing is, like, I think my father, because we live in the province, and my
Did
mom
they
is
want?
very modern and things. So my father is very conservative, very intelligent, very conservative.
So
And
he
my dad
wanted you
says,
to be a doctor.
well, not really necessarily. He wanted me to have something that is more, he said, normal. And because I was really
Normal,
good at painting
normal.
when I was young. Because I was
Okay.
really like winning paintings when I was young. So when I don't have money, I wanted to buy like a something I
Materials.
like a jeans or something. I
Oh,
would join a painting competition, and if I win, I will buy something that my parents couldn't afford to buy and things. So that's what I do. So I said to my dad, maybe I should be a painter or I study fine arts. But then my dad, in his way, says like, you can always do painting on the side. You can always do arts on the side.
right, right, right,
You
right.
can. Maybe you
Very
should
Pinoy.
do. Maybe you should do like something. Like maybe how about medicine or maybe maybe a dentist.
Right,
You could
right,
help
right,
our relatives. You can help your everyone. So I think it was on a practical side, and I think
right,
he's just worried. I think obviously that I mean,
right,
this whole sort of stigma that being an artist is a struggle, which is the truth
right.
as well. That's the
So,
truth as well. I think even in a Western world, being an artist, it's not easy. You working in a creative industry is not easy. Being an actress is not easy. Being an actor, being a singer, it's not a reliable sort of
so how did you manage to
passion.
tell your parents that no, I will not take the medical scholarship. Instead, I will go to London to be a designer. How did your parents
I
react?
I think
Eh,
I think my mom is already convinced naman that I have a talent. That's why she's always like
Very
hanggang ngayon.
supportive.
She's always like she's super support. She's like the super mom who always
Oh,
like supports me. She's like my big cheerleader. But I think with my dad, he needs to be convinced that I have a talent. And obviously, when I was young, I entered a competition, a Paris design competition, which
yeah,
at
I
the time
remember.
was very popular. And
Yes.
I don't have any experience on sewing and making dresses and stuff like that. So I entered. I saw it on, I think, Inquirer newspaper or
Right,
Star,
right.
and then I entered my entry. And it's a funny thing because I saw it last minute, so I was like drawing it one night, and the deadline was like tomorrow, and we went to the airport, and we couldn't really send anywhere in a cargo or anything like that because it has to be there that day. So I said to my mom, "This is my dream."
Oh
I was
no, is
like,
it
"How
true
am I
that
going?"
she stopped a plane? Is that
Yeah, she
true?
went. She said,
How
"Give it
did
to
she
me."
do that?
And I said, "Give it to me." She said, like, "Where are you going?" I said to my mom. I said, like, "Just give it to me." We were standing in the airport, and she's trying to find someone who
We'll
might.
go to Manila.
We're hoping who would go to Manila, who's passing it. But we're looking at everyone. There's nobody we know that already
Oh
coming there.
no.
And I said, "Oh my God, my dream, my dream." And so she was there like, "Don't give up." She said, "Nothing is
Galing naman
impossible."
ng mommy.
My mom's motto, our motto in our family is nothing is impossible to a willing mind. So she said, "Give it
She,
to me." So the airplane was already about to leave
oh
because
my
they're already
gosh.
like, all the last passenger was already, we could see in Calibo Airport at the time. Calibo was used to be a small airport. Would you
Yes,
believe it?
yes,
And you could
yes.
see the airplane if it's already the last passenger have come up already from already inside the airplane. So I could see that the last person was already there. So I said, "Oh my God, they're about to close the thing."
Oh
So my mom said,
no.
"Give it to me." And I said, "What are you going to do?" And then the last thing I saw, my mom running on the tarmac,
Oh my god.
going up the airplane, and
Oh my god.
I couldn't really don't know how she managed to get in the securities. But anyway, I saw her going in the airplane, and I saw her like trying to argue with the flight attendant on the entrance. And then at the end I saw her going in. So I said to myself, "Oh my God, what is she doing?"
What did
And
she
then
say?
obviously she went out, and I saw her without the envelope. So I
Oh
said,
my
"Oh my
god.
God." I mean, she could have given it to the pilot or something.
Right,
So
right.
anyway, she came down. She told me that she asked the stewardess that this is a matter of life and death. She said that,
Wow.
yeah, that.
Amazing mom. And that was the start of
So basically, she stood there where the flight attendant is standing, and the flight attendant allow her the time to speak in the middle of the airplane and say, "Look, this is a folder. This is the sketches of my son, and
Oh my
it
God.
needed to be at the CITEM, the Center for
Yes,
International
yes,
Trade and
yes.
Exposition Mission in Rojas Boulevard. If anyone could, could just like hand it over today, would
Wow.
be great because
Slow clap
it's
for your
really
mom.
nice. So you have to give it to her. That's why everyone was asking why your mom is always with you, because I said she's all, she's
She's
with
the
me all, just
reason.
all the way, from the beginning about it. She really believed that, I can make it. And obviously, I received a call from the SITEM that, they selected me on the lineup that, that I should fly to Manila. But at the time, I couldn't afford to fly to Manila.
Oh,
So I have to take the ship, and it was like, it took me like 24 hours to go to Manila. And then when I went there, I met my ultimate sort of
idol.
designer that I only admire locally, which is Inosoto. And
Right.
Inosoto and Richard Tan at the time were basically like the biggest you could ever think in the fashion
True,
industry
true,
in the
true.
Philippines, and they were
And
doing
you
fashion
became
watches.
Eno's apprentice, right?
Well, what happened really is that the competition, they allowed you a mentor, like Turnocon. They allow you a mentor, so they assigned the mentor. So at the time, the mentor really, Natori was like coming in and out, because she worked a lot with Saitem. But at the time, the mentor, was the president of the Fashion Design Council of the Philippines at the time, and I think along with Cesar Gaupo was already part of that, and I think there were the mentors. So I think I ended up with Ino because I was the youngest and I was the one who has. I don't have the most. I don't have the experience. I have the zero background or anything on fashion. So they thought that maybe Ino could do a better job or something, because you have to remember, at the time I was with sort of kind of established younger designers already. Like Jojo Loren was the president of the Young Designers Guild, and he was part of the competition. He was with me. Robbie Lolin was already there. They're all designers who joined the competition. Jerry Katigbak, was even on the
Yes,
competition. So they're really
right.
like, established designers who had catwalks, who have ateliers. So I'm the one with zero from Aklan, with who went to Manila with nowhere to sleep and anything. So,
Amazing. Right.
so Eno sort of kind of mentored me, and towards the end, he even allowed me to sort of kind of stay in his atelier. So I sleep on his
And
atelier. So
tequila.
that was like a dream. So in the morning, I go in, and all the mananahi were there, and then and where I sleep was basically in his office with a folding bed, and I could see all the archive of all those like amazing
Wow.
collection, like the Made to Dream collection, the Indian collection from the ASEAN show, which you did. I think you were
Yes, yes,
one of the models for the ASEAN.
yes.
So all those things, when I was a young kid, I just saw them on magazines. So suddenly I was sleeping in his atelier, and I see all these iconic dresses. So for me, it was
Wow.
a great thing. So that's why I always believe that with young designers, you always have to sort of kind of guide them and support them, because
Nurture them.
I think you have to nurture them, because that's the importance really talaga, kasi is that that's the only kind of legacy you could leave in the industry, because you'll disappear, you might be doing this and that in magazine and stuff, but at the end of the day, trying to kind of nurture younger designer, that's how it
Right,
works, because you're sort
right.
of kind of inspire them, you pass it on, and that's why I'm forever grateful to Inosoto, and for the opportunity, and to the late Richard Tan as well, of course, because Richard
Right.
at the time was
I'm
there.
sure, and Richard are very, very proud of you and everything you've accomplished. What do you want now that you're nurturing the younger designers? What advice do you usually give them? I'm sure you're their role model in terms of your life story and how you made the impossible
Yeah,
happen.
well,
What
yeah.
advice do you give them about
Well, I
your
well,
own
what we
experience?
always advise to them really now is, in my experience, really is like I can only advise them based on the present, because when I was struggling and I was trying to achieve my dream of working in the industry and hoping to study, those times were really different. We don't have social media, we don't have books. I can't afford books, so I have to go to National Bookstore and sit there and try to flicker on whatever's available in Moraita National Bookstore, and try to kind of try to just remember the picture, because I couldn't afford to. I think the doing Xerox and stuff like that at the time, on my time, I felt it's so expensive. So everything has to be to be done really mano mano. I mean, I have to go to the library if I wanted to do research. If I wanted to see a video of a Thierry Mugler, I have to go through certain specific libraries and stuff to be able to do that. But I was saying to them that they're really lucky. The younger designers are so lucky now,
Right.
because
Internet age.
all the information, the technology allows them
Right.
to access all these informations and images for research. I think people say, "Oh, I think I don't believe in the snobbery of the idea that, oh, I don't want to see what other people is doing because I want it to be original." But I think it's debatable. I think I disagree on that, because I think part of being a fashion designer is being able to be aware of everything that's happening around you. Because, to be able to be a fashion designer, you should be really a leader on taste. You should be really a leader on information, and that's what always been the function of fashion. And I think that's what the problem we have in the fashion industry, in every fashion capital. When I say fashion industry, it's like, in a global point of view, I think the problem we have now is that I think we lost the point of view why fashion exists. And I
Right.
think, on my say, I think what the problem is that it became a fasting. It became, there's so many things about fashion that it has to be done. It has to be done in a commercial point of view. I think we've lost the reason why it exists. And the reason why fashion exists is because it's there to inspire. We don't really need, and I always said this on my interview before, that we don't really need any more garments. We don't need clothing anymore. If you
Right.
have to be honest, H&M has like billions and billions of clothing that's sitting on the warehouse that are not even used. Some of them are being burned and everything. And Burberry have promised that they will stop burning certain sort of kind of products that they couldn't sell. We've been producing so many stuff, and in the end of the day, fashion, it's just clothing. It's just a t-shirt. You have a
Right.
sleeve, you have the neckline, a pantalon has two things and stuff. It's just clothing. But I think the reason that fashion really exists is the fact that it is a reflection of time. When you
Right.
do fashion, it has to reflect on whatever happens in the world. As what they say, the only thing when you go to a museum, when you look at the painting, as what Karl Lagerfeld used to say, the only thing to identify a certain time of a painting is the way how they dress. So when you see a painting, you don't really need a date, because the dress will tell you what time it was. Was there any movement happening when when that type of dresses was there? Was there any sort of political movement happening? And this is what I say to younger people, that it's not just about being, and this is why we set up the main college, was the whole idea really that design doesn't just end on sewing and cutting.
Right.
I think that the fashion industry is such a complicated industry that we're into really, they say it's a smoke and mirror industry. Yes, it is, because it's about images. It's about inspiring. It's about creating an image that that will inspire people. And I think that's what we're missing here in the fashion industry, is that we keep producing clothes. It doesn't mean anything anymore. We keep producing clothes just to hit the figure, the number, the target. And I think that's where the problem, because all this sort of capitalism and everything, and the banking, the Wall Street, the investment banking, trying to get a slice of the action of fashion. And the thing about fashion is that it can only grow in certain sort of amount of revenue every year. Even if you say Valentino's been now owned by the royal, royal Qatari royal company, there's only certain amount of investment you can make for it to grow. There's only 12 months in a year. Trying to make fast fashion sell clothing from design, production to retail
Right.
within a span of 2 weeks, for example, with Sarah and Topshop, for example, these companies really have the power and the capital to do all this 2 weeks sort of kind of cycle. But the thing about it really is that it created confusion then to the consumer, because you ended up the retail's environment ended up with a saturated with products that cannot be sold, because every
Right.
2 weeks on a high street level you have new products coming in.
Right.
Also
Right.
on the luxury level, you have the designer brands and the bigger brands trying to come up with new pieces and collection and special, exceptional collection and special pieces and, exclusive collection for this. So it's almost like every 2 months there's new collection coming in every retail store. So, you know it's inevitable that in the end those products could, I mean, the shelf life is so short, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of amount of clothing that in the end you have to put it on sale, and then it ruined the whole sort of cycle of
Right.
selling and the whole sort of dream, because you go to a shop to dream, to buy. You don't go to a shop to wait for a sale. The fashion industry didn't really work that way, because at the end of
Right.
the day, if we look at our cupboard, we have enough clothing already in our stock.
Right.
Even the poorer, maybe you could say, they probably could live up. I think the pandemic is a good reminder
It
to
forces
all
us
of
to
us.
realize that we don't
Yeah,
really need so many
we
clothes.
don't really need too many clothes. Like me, I only
Right.
wear t-shirts. I only have like, because in the barrio we have a lot of places to live here, but I don't have clothes. I don't
Right.
have enough clothes. I only have shorts and stuff. And the other clothing that I have was winter, so I couldn't wear them here. Then I realized me that we don't really need more clothing. But then again,
Right.
it goes back to the question about the industry, because I know the whole industry of fashion in a global point of view is really in a terrible state. And I think
Yeah.
it's a good question. Everything, the idea of fashion really is redundant. And we have to go back to the real reason why it exists. We don't need clothing, but we do need clothing that inspire people, that make
Right.
people dream, that changes people to be better person. And I know it sounded like a beauty queen answer or a cliche,
No, no.
but
It's
that's what
profound,
fashion
but
is
it's
all about.
meaningful.
We buy into brands because they make us dream. They make us the experience of shopping. You go to the shop, you go there, you plan, you work hard, you wanted to be a better person, you want to study, you aim higher for better education, you wanted to work, and you wanted to be in that sort of level of job so that you can afford certain of fashion, because it's a dream. None of it is a reality. It's just to inspire people to be a better people, to be a better person, and that's what fashion is all about. And I think that's why I think the fashion industry needs to really reevaluate
Change.
itself. Yeah, and
Right.
that's why I feel sad somehow, because we've seen brands showing, collection recently on spring summer collection, and it's interesting to see how people and brands with a lot of money behind them, conglomerates. It's interesting how the side of carrying, the side of LVMH, the side of independent and medium-sized brand. It's interesting how they approach the problem, the issues, because fashion is also about finding solution. We're
Right.
an industry that is always about change, but at the same time, we are also an industry that's always about finding solution. I mean, we created a monster system that has never been changed since 1950. So it's like 70
Right.
years. Our system
Right.
in the global fashion industry has never really changed for 70 years. Since the Dior and all those golden years of Dior started with showing salon, and then it becomes a main the catwalk becomes like you have to have a catwalk
Right.
to be considered to be a proper designer. But I think that it's interesting how to see how the brands are adapting and finding solution. And I feel a bit sorry sometimes too. I feel a bit sorry and I feel sad to see brands that are still doing catwalk on a pandemic. I felt that that's not really what the industry needed. I think
Right.
the whole idea, I'm not saying that fashion show really has to be stopped. But what I'm saying is that fashion is about finding solution, finding new ways of approach, and that's why I'm hoping that I see more solution on brands
Right.
that has
Right.
more money and everything to do
Right.
to execute things. And I think it's interesting to see other smaller brands doing fashion films and presenting their collection. Some are
Right.
doing
In different
dance
ways. Yes,
and ways and
yes.
stuff. Some are just doing curation. Some are just showing. But it's also interesting to see brands like some brands that you've never heard before. But they're just showing like 10 pieces of clothing, sometimes
Right,
eight, but they're
right.
all sort of kind of captivating and
Very
inspiring.
well
And it kind of
chosen.
reminds us again to what I said, that in fashion, you don't really need to have a massive 50 collection if you can't afford it. If you're a young
Right,
designer,
right,
as going back to what your question is, with the advice with young designer, please don't compete with bigger brands, because the problem with young designer brands is they're trying to emulate bigger brands. They're trying to
right,
come up with, trying to do a fashion show, trying to make a pre-collection, trying to make a resort collection. But having to do that, just stick on two collection, do
right,
the
right,
classic collection. Because I personally think we should go back to either seasonless collection or either the original two collection, because I felt like that's where the problem is, because young designer felt that they're obliged to also copy what the
right.
big brands are doing. So
'Cause
when the
that's
big
what
brands
they're
started
used to.
doing, we used to do two collection a year. When they saw the big brands trying to do pre-collection and resort collection, ito naman mga young designer, they decided to also do that. But to be able to
Right,
do that, you need to have a bigger team to do that,
right,
because the bigger brand, they have a separate team to just do pre-collection
right,
and resort. And although on the retail point of view, resort and pre-collection, they sell longer than the main collection because the shelf life is longer. But young designer should stay young designer. And I think we have to learn from the lesson of the big designer like Yoji Yamamoto, for example, who said that, you know, the biggest regret in his life is that, selling his company to the bank people, to the
mm,
money people. Because Yoji Yamamoto was a great brand when it was small, and it was a Yoji Yamamoto owned brand. I think everyone always wanted to be big. They see what the Dior and Chanel is doing. Everyone wanting to sell up and make and expand and make it bigger. And I think this is the problem with companies like, one of my classmates at St. Martin, like Sak Posen. I think what happened to his company is that, he's trying to compete with those bigger brands, which personally, I think his brand is quite enough. I think it's beautiful as it is. But I think that's the pressure, I think, as well. I think with
right,
the fashion
right,
industry, because everyone wanted to be always the big ones,
right.
where there are so much beauty of being an independent brand and being small. And yeah, so that's what really was.
Right. Hopefully things will change and you're already part of the change by pointing out these things. What do you want to tell also the young designers and Filipinos as well who admire your story? What do you want to tell them about resilience and grit and perseverance in the most challenging times such as today? And your life is a living example of how you really persevered against all odds.
I
What
think we
what
always use, unfortunately, I think we use, I think our family also uses the word resilience, but I think it's really also a redundant word, because we always say, oh, Filipinos are resilient. No, because basically we don't really have choice. Like, Filipinos don't have a choice but to survive. I think we only
Right.
use resilience in Filipino point of view because, we want to make an
We're
excuse.
glamorizing the suffering.
We're just making glamorizing the thing because people are not doing anything to help, but or
True,
people are not
true.
doing anything. And I felt that, I think it's a word that's being misused, I think, because we
Exploited.
we just wanted to excuse because people are not doing
The lack
anything
of
really.
action.
And
Right.
I just
True.
felt that,
Very
and
true.
we just have to survive. I think we just have to look at it as human rather than as Filipino, that I think it's our instinct to will always find to survive. And I think, it's really about mental sort of strength, really, of trying to just like being positive and everything and stuff
Right.
like that. I don't know, I mean, trying to like inspire people. I think it's not really my story, really. If you kind of ask a lot of people, if you see a lot of thing, I think everyone has their own struggle to be able to achieve their dream. I don't think it's just me. I think it's normal. I always, people say, oh, it's exceptional that, I've gone through so much struggle. But I think some people are just not vocal about it, maybe. But I think
Right.
anyone who has a dream, I think, has gone through the stages of struggle and that I've gone through. I think maybe people have, gone through even worse, and a lot of people has achieved much way bigger than what I've done.
Right.
Mine is
Right.
just like, you can never really, some people won't even remember it, but it's just like one of those small stories, and we live on those stories to inspire us. But what I was saying about young designer is that I think now with the technology that we have is that always just to be aware of what's in there with you, like live in the present, and see it on the long term. And I think people, we still have this sort of kind of thing about that we have to leave the country to be a successful
Yes.
designer,
Yes.
and I felt that that's already kind of wrong already. I
Cliche.
said that's quite redundant,
Pasin.
it's quite cliche that you have to be in, you have to be in New York, or you have to be in San Francisco or in Paris to be considered,
Yes.
a successful designer. I think that's quite an obsolete idea of success already in fashion.
Wow.
I think I said to young designer, don't do that anymore. To don't try to be wanting to leave the country to prove something so that you can go
Right.
back and prove something to your fellow
Right.
Filipino.
Right.
Don't
Right.
do that, because when you think something like that, then you're already starting on the wrong sort of kind of you're already on the wrong sort of kind of route towards it. I think you have to really look inside you and really like follow what you are all about. I think there are some young designers that I really admire in the Philippines, and I think there's a lot of really great talents that we can see. But at the moment, there's sort of kind of indie, what we call sort of kind of, they have their own sort of kind of culture, and I think there's a bit kind of elitist in a way because they don't really show up much of their work. But I think there are a lot of interesting one that I've seen in the Philippines, and there's kind of a silent movement, and I will mention some later, like brands like, okay, I'll mention now, like Carl Jan Cruz, like Toka, like Pio Pio, for example. I mean, these are like quite exciting local brands that are based in the Philippines. And that's why I was saying to young designers at Turnocon that you don't really have to leave the Philippines now, because with the technology and everything, I think the borders are just disappearing. I think we're becoming like a one whole thing. And I think what you should really focus more is really on your message of who you are, what you're all about. What is your universe all about? What sort of kind of message do you want to send, to say? What story do you want to tell? Because I think that's where really, that's more the determining factor really of how you're going to be noticed in the industry, is how original your point of view is. Or
Right.
can you hear me, or can you still see
Yes.
me?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's all about telling original story that has never been heard. And I think that this is the time where you can be anywhere. You could be in Zamboanga, you
The
can be
world is
based in
global already.
Batanes. Like in my case, I am at the
You're in
moment
Aklan.
based in a barrio in Aklan, in Panay Island. And still, I have people from Thailand, I have people from America trying to buy my pieces, trying to buy
Right.
off the pieces that I made quietly in the province. So I said, these things, the technology, you have to take advantage about it. But first, you have to focus really on what story you want to tell. And if you want to
Right.
tell a story, it has to be original. It has to be a reflection of what you believe. And everything about it is just created. You create that universe, you package it, and you tell your story. And because that's how we do it. We tell it via photographs, we tell it via films, we tell it
Right.
in
Social
images and
media.
everything, social media. And that's how it works nowadays. And I think this whole idea of just leaving the country, going to other country, and trying to come back here and do a big show is already like past. That's
Right.
already
That's
like,
like
yeah.
pre-pandemic times.
I think it's you know I said, look at Amina Aranas. I mean, she's based in the Philippines, but she's selling at Selfridges, she's selling in
Right.
America, she have these things and stuff. So there's a lot of thing about being Filipino, being authentic, being true to yourself, and you don't have to move to be an international brand. And I think
Right.
that's a great sort of kind of
Very
thing now, I think.
very optimistic message, which will give everyone hope. Thank you so much, Lesley. We learned so
Have we
much from you.
consumed already 1 hour?
We could go on and on.
We
Maybe
could go
we can
on and on.
have a part two, but we're so inspired. Thank you for opening our eyes to new ways of seeing things, for
Thank
shifting
you
our
very much.
paradigms and questioning old beliefs. And we would have wanted to have you for the rest of the year, but I'm sure you'll be back in no time at all. And looking forward to all the creativity that you have yet to share with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Myrza, and have a good day.
All right,
Okay.
you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. This has been TikTok, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.